dads, thanks for tuning in. Now, it's no secret that once you become a dad, staying in shape becomes much harder. Time becomes a lot more scarce, and you want to be home, you want to be around the kids, to play with them, eat dinner together, make sure that you share those special moments. There's absolutely nothing in the world like it. However, does being a dad mean that you have to say goodbye to the gains entirely? Well, my name's Harry. I say no to that, and I'm here to teach you the Daddy Gains Guide, so you can be 100% Papa and 100% Jack at the same time, okay? Be home in time for dinner with the kids, and also have arms that make your little boy look at you and say, I want to be strong like Dad one day. If that sounds good, listen on, and I can share the method that I've used for progressing with my strength and muscle gains for the last 2 years. I came up with this method about 2 years ago when my second child was born, and I've used it to make sure that I am still gaining on a limited time budget. And I've used it to good results. I've been able to make consistent strength gains over the last 2 years, barring a few setbacks here and there, but mostly it's just been upward progression. So onto the program. The program makes use almost exclusively of compound lifts. So a compound lift is a movement that recruits more than one muscle group at a time. So for example, a bicep curl is only really using the bicep at one time, whereas pull-ups are making use of the bicep, the forearm, rear delts, latissimus dorsi, rhomboids, and all that good stuff. So multiple muscle groups at one time. So these movements require more results for the time spent doing them, and they're the tried and true methods that lifters and bodybuilders have been using for ages now to add significant amounts of muscle to the body. The structure of the program will consist of 4 lifts: a push, a pull, a squat, and a hip hinge. These 4 movement patterns will make sure that all the major muscle groups in the body are challenged during a single workout. Push lifts are an upper body movement that recruit the chest, shoulders, and the triceps, which is the muscle group at the back of the upper arm. So you could think of bench press and shoulder press. Pull lifts are the second upper body movement in the program, and pull movements recruit mainly the biceps and the back. So think of rows and pull-ups. Squat movements are a lower body movement which recruit the quads, the glutes, and calves to a lesser extent. So we're talking mainly squats there and the squat variation. So back squats, front squats, Bulgarian split squat, belt squats, things like that. And the final movement is the hip hinge movement, which works the posterior chain. So the posterior chain is all the muscle groups at the back of the body. So glutes and the spinal erectors, things of that nature. Lower back, which is going to be mainly deadlifts. Deadlift is going to be the main movement for the hip hinge. But also deadlift variations like block pulls, rack pulls, and things like hyperextensions as well. Each workout will consist of 1 lift from each of these categories. Now, some movements that are optional but desirable. The first I would recommend is shoulder prehab work, prehabilitation, i.e. bulletproofing the shoulders to prevent injuries, because shoulder injuries are one of, if not the most common type of injury that lifters complain of. So at the end of the workout, after you've done your 4 main movements, I would recommend some shoulder prehab. So that's going to be things like face pulls, wide grip pull-ups, Cuban rotations, rear delt flies. And the final one is optional but also desirable is direct ab work. If you're doing compound lifts, especially with a lot of weight, squats, deadlifts, overhead press, your abs will grow. However, if it's a muscle group that, I mean, let's face it, abs are aesthetic. If it's a muscle group that you would like to see more development in, then it can't hurt to do some direct ab work. I really like cable crunches, weighted crunches with a plate or a dumbbell, and leg raises. Now, on to progression. Progression means that we are getting stronger and bigger over time. Now, this is a must for every workout program. You need to be tracking your lifts. That means you need to know in any given workout and be able to look back on it, the movements that you did, how much you lifted, and for how many sets and reps. The reason for this is to ensure that you're adding weight to the bar or using heavier dumbbells for every exercise, or you are getting more reps on a certain exercise. This ensures progressive overload, which basically just means that you are stretching your strength capabilities each time you go to the gym on any given lift. So you can use a pen and paper for this. However, I prefer an app because apps allow you to more readily compare your lifts from last time. So I have an Android phone and it's an app called Simple Workout Log. The icon is just an orange background with a dumbbell on it. It's really good because you can select an exercise and at a glance I can see how much I lifted on that lift last time, and that means that I can know exactly how much I lifted and add to it, or how many reps I performed and go for more reps on that exercise. So for example, if last time I benched 100 kilograms for 3 sets of 5 reps, this time I want to try 102.5 kilograms for 3 sets of 5 reps. When you're adding weight to the bar, 2.5 kilograms or 5 pounds is a good manageable addition to secure your progression. The second principle that my method employs to ensure progression is a high exercise selection. So this means that you won't stick to any one lift for too long, and you'll replace that lift with another similar lift from the same movement category. So for example, if last time you worked, when you worked out, you did rows for your pulls, this time maybe you go with lat pull downs or pull-ups or chin-ups. However, you are the best judge of your own body, so use your judgment on this. I would say, for example, if you find that your squat is just blowing up every time you're going in, maybe stick to the squat for a while, stick to the back squat. If after a time you find that the gains are running dry, which is inevitable really, then you can switch it up. You can go for a front squat, you can go for belt squats, goblet squats, another movement from the same category. But I can already hear you saying, but Harry, how can I make sure I'm progressing on a lift if I only do it like once every few weeks? Well, don't worry about that, because by performing lifts from the same movement category, you can ensure that you maintain your strength level on that lift. So for example, if I've been squatting for a while and then I move on for a week or two to front squats, by doing the same work from the same movement category, I'm going to ensure that my back squat strength level is maintained, or perhaps even because of rest, even progression. So by employing a high exercise selection, we ensure that the body doesn't become too accustomed to any one lift, because the body is an adaptation machine, meaning that if I've been doing the bench for a while, for example, my body is going to become more, it's going to adapt and become more efficient at doing the bench. Greater efficiency means less challenge, and less challenge means more gains. So you got to outfox your own body because it's sneaky. So you got to mix it up, and that's going to ensure progression for you. Periodization. Periodization just refers to the splitting of a program into different phases. Now, this program will only employ 2 phases, a strength phase and a hypertrophy phase. Strength is a function of the central nervous system, so you can think of it as it's really more of a skill. So when you train for strength, you're training the central nervous system to more efficiently recruit muscle fibers to lift a heavy load. Hypertrophy refers to increasing the size of the muscle. Now, strength and hypertrophy are not the same thing, but they are related because a bigger muscle, which you'll get from hypertrophy training, will have a greater potential for strength, for gaining strength, than a smaller muscle. So I would say begin with the strength phase. During the strength phase, you're going to use a higher intensity but a lower volume. What that means is heavier weights and less reps. So I would recommend 3 to 4 sets for each movement of 5 to 8 reps. You may even want to go as low as 3 for certain movements like squat and deadlift, movements that recruit a ton of muscle groups at the same time and are quite taxing on the central nervous system. When you move into a hypertrophy phase, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to employ high volume and lower intensity. So more reps and less weight. So choose a weight that you can lift for 3 or 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps. I don't recommend going higher than 12. I just think that you're basically doing cardio at that point, right? There's no gains to be found in that wasteland of a rep range. And I would also add that I don't believe that the deadlift is suited to higher reps. So you may want to, during a hypertrophy cycle, you may want to switch deadlifts for something a bit more high rep friendly, like power cleans or hyper extensions. A phase should run roughly from anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. At the end of a phase, you may wish to have a recovery week, which is when you take a week out of the gym and you're going to do some active recovery, which just means some light activity, walking, stretching, a sport that you enjoy, something that's lower intensity but keeps you moving. This means that you can be fully recovered for the next phase and give your joints, tendons a chance to catch up with your muscles because they recover more slowly than your muscles do. Frequency. Well, you're a daddy, you got to be home. Really just get in when you can. I would say that 3 times a week is the lower end of acceptable. 4 is better. 5 is probably the maximum that you could do and still adequately recover from. But really, your time is under constraints, so get in when you can and don't beat yourself up if you have to miss a workout here and there. Just make sure that you're being consistent. Now, nutrition. I don't want to go too in-depth on nutrition in this video because it's more about the workout program. However, I would provide this one maxim, which is eat whole and unprocessed foods until you are satiated. Now, the difference between satiated and stuffed. Okay, so stuffed is like a physical feeling of, you couldn't possibly eat anymore. Satiated means you're not hungry anymore. And there is a difference between the two, and it may require a bit of attention to your own internal experience, but there is a difference between the two. By whole and unprocessed foods, I mean foods in as close to their natural state as possible. So single item ingredients, meaning steak, chicken, salmon, spinach, potatoes, sweet potatoes, apples, grapes, things like that. Miss anything with an ingredients list the size of a Tolstoy novel, and particularly if that ingredient list includes anything that sounds like it belongs in a chemistry experiment, just swerve that. In practice, this is going to mean eating meats, fish, eggs, fruits, vegetables. Legumes like beans and lentils, probably okay if you like them. I generally discourage grain consumption. I don't eat a lot of grains because I think that they just provide too many carbs in a serving. For most men, I don't think that we need that many carbs, particularly with the kind of lifestyles that we lead these days. I think enough for performance in the gym and recovery we just need adequate amount of carbs for that. Prioritize protein you're gonna want to make sure that you're getting enough protein. People throw around 1 gram per pound of lean body weight. I think that's probably on the higher end. I think for most men, if you're shooting between 120 to 180 grams a day, that's probably about right. Also fats, you don't want to be scared of fats. Fats are a good part of the diet. Use animal fats, so beef tallow, lard, butter, ghee, and you can also use coconut oil, olive oil. Red palm oil is good if you can find a good sustainable source that orangutans didn't get murdered for. You can find it. Avoid seed oils and vegetable oils like the plague. They're inflammatory, they're rancid, and they're just the devil. So that's canola, sunflower oil, anything that just says vegetable oil on it. Grapeseed oil, rice bran oil, swerve that. Also, you want to avoid sugar. I don't think it's the end of the world if you have like a little bit of sugar as a treat occasionally, but it doesn't want to be a regular part of the diet. Eating like this is going to provide your body with the nutrition it needs to build muscle and recover, and also keep you satisfied so you're not going to be hungry, and also limit the amount of fat gain. Now, eating this way, it's not going to get you single-digit body fat shredded, but it is going to mean that you've got a relatively low body fat that shows off what you've earned in the gym, and you're going to look good. Fasting is another thing. Fasting is a thing that I use. I use OMAD, 1 meal a day. You could use something less severe, like a 16-hour fast in an 8-hour window, or an 18-hour fast in a 6-hour window, feeding window. Or you don't have to fast at all. I find that it's helpful for appetite suppression, so that I'm not hungry all the time. It just kind of controls the hunger pangs, and also calorie control, because if I've been fasting and then I eat a decent meal, I feel a lot more satisfied with that meal than if I'd split it up into 3 or 4 meals throughout the day. But it's really up to you whether you want to use fasting. Okay, so that's the Daddy Gains method. This is what I've been using to make consistent gains for the last 2 years. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Hopefully this gave you something to work with. If you liked the video and you found it useful, you enjoyed it, please give it a like and give me a subscribe. Most of all, don't give up. Don't give up on your goals because you became a dad, okay? You need to be a man that your kids can look up to. Be a man that's going after his goals and achieving, staying healthy and strong. Your kids need that. That's important for them. So, thanks for watching, and God bless.